All right. Well, are we good to go? Okay for me to start? Great, thank you. Well, I would like to call to order the NCTD Performance Administration and Finance Committee meeting for February 2nd, 2024. And to start the meeting today, I'll go ahead and ask Hannah, the deputy clerk, to call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will now call the roll. Chair Bhat Patel,
Here.
Vice Chair Jenkins,
Here.
Committee Member Garcia, Committee Member Edson.
Present.
That concludes the roll.
Thank you. Do we have any public speakers today?
Madam Chair.
Okay, and before that, I do need to ask to provide a safety brief and review evacuation procedures as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will now read the safety brief. In case of an emergency, I will dial 911. In case of an evacuation, please take the stairs. Do not use the elevators. Once cleared of the building, do not re-enter unless cleared to do so by emergency personnel. There are fire extinguishers and first aid kits on each floor of the building. There's a portable defibrillator on the first floor and staff on hand trained on CPR procedures if needed. This concludes my safety brief.
Thank you. And since we didn't have any public speakers, we'll go ahead and close the public registration for general public comment. And we have 3 items on the agenda today. Our deputy clerk will review item number 1, the election of the PAF committee vice chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As agenda item number 1 outlines, the time has come to elect the vice chair of the PAF committee. The committee member elected will also sit on the NCTD Executive Committee. Per NCTD Board Policy number 3, the committee may now discuss their selection for vice chair.
That's it. Okay, great. Thank you. Well, do we have any public speakers for this item?
Madam Chair.
All right, great. At this time, public registration to comment on this item has closed. Do I have a motion to elect committee member Jenkins as vice chair of the PAF committee?
I move we elect committee member Jenkins as vice chair of the PAF committee.
Great. Do I have a second? And can I second? Okay, I'll second so you don't have to second. Second. So motion made by member Edson and then seconded by myself. If we could please call the vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will now call the vote. Chair Bhat Patel.
Aye.
Committee Member Jenkins.
Aye.
Committee Member Garcia. Committee Member Edson.
Aye.
Thank you, committee members. The motion passes.
Great, thank you. Congratulations, Vice Chair. All right, so we're moving on to item number 2, and Yoon Park Lynch, NCTD's Chief Financial Officer and the staff liaison to the PAF committee, will review the next item regarding the staff's proposed PAF committee work plan for calendar year 2024.
Good afternoon, committee members. In the next slide, we are presenting the 3 proposed meetings for this calendar year. The first one is today, so we have 2 more coming, one in May and the other one in December. These are some of the proposed agenda items that we want to present on those meetings. This it's flexible, so in the event that topics come up and maybe board members want something to be presented, that can be added to the agenda. So this is a starting point. You're very familiar with some of the agenda items that we have here. For May, we are going to be providing an update on the operating budget for FY25 and also the proposed fee schedule that will be effective for FY25. And those are the services such as flagging, right-of-way services that we bill to third parties. And then on December, we'll be presenting the same thing that we did last month, or almost 2 months, it's February 2nd, the results of the unaudited financial statements for fiscal year 2024, as well as the update on our pension liability and the proposed capital improvement program for FY26 or FY 2030.
Oh, my microphone was off. Thank you. Do you all have any questions at all? I know I have to ask for public comment, but yeah, do we have any public speakers on this?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, and I'm looking now for questions or comments. Okay, it seems like board member Jenkins has one.
I have a question. And I don't remember exactly when we talked about this, but I believe in one of our recent meetings, maybe at a board meeting. Better. we talked about adding something to review at the PAF level. Does that ring a bell with anybody? Or maybe it was something somebody brought up that wanted to bring it to a board meeting or something. I thought there was something we thought, oh, that might be a good item for PAF. Do you remember anything about that, Lori? Or do you? Okay.
Well, I'll give you a few seconds. What we will do is, of course, after every meeting, we do an action item summary that goes to all of the staff. We review it to make sure we caught everything. And if Lori doesn't remember it, we
Then-
will go through that, and I know it's there.
Okay,
So,
okay.
Because
I thought there was something, there was,
Yeah.
so
Well-
maybe you could just review that and see if it is something we need to add. Sorry, I
Will
don't
do.
remember the subject matter. Yes.
Well, we have had quite a few subjects in the last
Yes.
few meetings, so.
Yes, thank you.
But we will get it,
Okay.
and we'll make sure that it's included.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments?
So December meeting. Let's see. I was wondering if that could be moved earlier than December, like in November, if that's a possibility, or like early November? Just because
The holidays.
Yeah.
The challenging part, well, we could present because we are still wrapping up the audit with the external auditors. So we are still in draft mode for the annual comprehensive financial report in November. So we could, but there's a likelihood that maybe during the audit review, something could change. We have not had any changes in the last few years, but I just want to add that caveat that there could be maybe some minor adjustments between what we present the PAF and the final audit financial statements. The pension liability, that can definitely be presented much earlier because we have those reports from CalPERS in July. And then the update on the CAPER program, we could probably provide a general framework on where we are on the CIP and maybe some of the projects that we are considering for advancement, but we have that it will not be solidified by November because there's a lot of revenue estimates that may not be coming in time. When we develop our constraint capital program, we use some historical and some maybe new estimates are provided by SANDAC on transit and TDA dollars. So we can provide general framework, but it will not be maybe to that level of detail than we have done in prior years.
Do you think maybe if we had our meeting earlier in December than closer to the holidays might work? Or
That's fine with me. I was just
Yeah.
checking. I just wanted to know whether or not it was viable.
okay,
Yeah,
As an
we could aim for that in early December.
okay.
Yeah, early
Mhm.
December would be great,
Yeah.
just based on, I know most of us have council recess the last
Mhm.
couple of weeks of December anyways.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming many of us try to plan travel or whatever else during that time. So that would be great, if we could.
Yeah, and also generally our council and all the agencies,
Yeah.
crunch down and try to get everything done those first couple weeks of
Yeah.
December. So it gets kind of competitive to try to find a date.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's doable. Yeah.
Okay, great. Awesome. Any other questions, comments before we move on? Okay, well, I know this is informational only, and so we won't be taking any action, but we've noted the comments that were received during this conversation.
Oh, I
Yes.
think I remember the PAF committee agenda item.
Oh,
Was
awesome.
it, was this considering, funding more our pension plan, knowing that it could potentially reduce our cash balance to less than 6 months of operating
That was
expenses?
it. Good
Yes,
job.
yeah.
Wow, impressive.
Yeah.
Good memory.
Awesome. So yes, if we could bring that back,
Yeah, and then maybe we could bring it at the same time as we are presenting the pension liability report.
that sounds great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, there we go. We got that answer.
Although, let me ask, waiting until December to bring that back, if there's a financial incentive to do something different, would we want to hear that earlier? Or do you need to have this report in order to make that decision?
So always, before the beginning of each fiscal year, CalPERS provides us the, payments that we have to make for the unfunded accrued liability. We always choose the option of prepaying, so we don't pay monthly, and that option is a payment in July, in the month of July.
Okay. So it doesn't matter if we do it before December.
Right, so then we could plan potentially maybe for the payment on July of 2026. twenty twenty-five, right? We could consider making the additional payment if we needed to.
Okay, that's good. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay, our last item will be a review of the results of the calendar year 2023 internal audit directed by PAF last year and consideration of the adoption of staff's proposed calendar year 2024 internal audit plan. Suzanne, and how do I pronounce your last name?
It's difficult to pronounce. It's Etai.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll let you say it.
Thank you.
NCTD's compliance officer will be reviewing this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, committee members. And as committee member Patel pointed out, I'm the compliance officer and I report to Lori Winfrey, the general counsel. And we also have Joe Freiberger. He is our NCTD's strategic advisor. And him and I, we work together on internal audit projects. So starting the presentation, before you is the 2023 internal audit results and the proposed 2024 internal audit work plan. Here's the history of the internal audit program. It was developed and approved in 2017, so it was approved by your board. From 2018 to 2021, we completed 8 audits. And in 2022, we conducted a risk assessment. It was agency-wide that resulted in a 3-year internal audit plan. And last year, we brought the internal audit plan before your committee for approval. As a refresher, the goal of the internal audit program is to ensure that the internal control systems that we have in place are working properly and they mitigate potential risks. And essentially, it's checks and balances. The other goal is to identify any areas for efficiencies or improvements. And last but not least, to inform the board of directors and management of best practices to achieve goals and objectives. The responsibilities of the PAF committee as it relates to the internal audit is to receive, review, and approve the internal audit plan. It's to receive status updates on internal audits and provide direction to the internal audit team. Okay, now moving on to the 2023 internal audit results. We planned 2 audits, one for HR benefits and the other one was on project management practices. HR benefits audit was postponed because we are in the process of developing a new HR system and we wanted to audit the new system. And I believe we informed you of this change. The results of the project management audit, I will cover it shortly. The audit methodology consisted, so that's the next slide. It consisted of reviewing existing policies and procedures as it relates to project management, interviewing key project managers, and testing a sample of capital projects. So that was our audit methodology. Here are the observations. It ranged from inconsistencies in procedures, including record-keeping processes, budget overruns, project delays, and unclear guidance and tools for project managers, and potentially overusing an internal process. We refer to it as Form A and B to plan and fund capital projects. And this project is separate from the capital improvement planning process. And here are the associate primary causes. For example, for budget overrun, that is due to unforeseen work activities that were added to the scope later, and it increased the budget. Okay, so the audit had 3 recommendations. These are all high-level recommendations. Recommendation number 1, establish a project management office. This office is agency-wide and it will support project managers from different divisions. The goal of this office is to adopt best practices and guidelines, set standards and KPIs. Recommendation number 2, train project managers. And that also falls under project management office. So training them on concepts, on project readiness or shovel readiness, training them on risk assessment techniques, and so forth. Recommendation number 3 is to evaluate our current capital improvement planning project and see if we can incorporate measures to improve forecasting of projects. And so that has to do with the capital improvement planning process. And as you know, it leads to a capital budget. So it itemizes a list of capital projects for budgeting. So the recommendations that I just went over, as I said, it's high level. And as a side note, management is aware of these issues, and we're taking a proactive approach. And we have Scott Lushke. He is the Deputy Chief from Development Services, and he is spearheading the efforts to form a project management office and incorporate these recommendations. So now that I covered the results of the 2023 internal audit results, I'm moving on to the proposed 2024 internal audit work plan. We have 2 areas that we would like to audit. One is accounts payable, and the other one is fair collection and enforcement. The objectives of the both audits is to ensure that our control systems are well-designed and working effectively, mitigating potential risk, and we're complying with existing policies and procedures. With that, staff recommends that your committee approves the internal audit plan, or I should say work plan, for this calendar year. And that this ends my presentation. And I also would like to acknowledge Joe Freiberger, and he assisted with the audit work. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. And may I go ahead and ask if we have any public speakers?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. At this time, public registration to comment on this item has closed. I'd like to check in to see if you all have any questions at all or comments. Okay. Board Member Jenkins?
Thank you very much. I have a couple questions. This might be for Lori. As we have done these over the years, has there ever been a situation where you're in the middle of this audit and you've had to immediately make a change of some kind, or changes happening after all the results are finalized?
As I sit here today, I cannot think of a time that something was like, shocking or
Okay.
egregious or something of that nature where we said we have to implement a change immediately. But no, I cannot think of a time that that's happened.
Okay. And then my other question is, let's see, you talked about project delays and budget overruns. I'm guessing some of that could relate to the length of time. We have a capital improvement project. It takes a certain amount of time to get all the funds together. And so the cost could go up during that process, or we're not quite ready to put the shovels or tractors in the ground yet. Could that be part of the reason for the overruns?
I don't think that's the case here.
Okay.
It could be, but I don't think it's the case here. I think what we found in the audit is that the price for materials has changed significantly. So, we anticipate, we create an independent cost estimate, we go and try to identify funding and so forth. And in that time period, there's been a lot of things going on with inflation and so forth. And I think in this particular instance, we primarily identified that as the issue.
Okay. And do we have a certain percentage that we commonly put into a project as far as a contingency, or does it depend on the project?
We typically do not have contingency funds,
Okay,
because we try, well, what we ask for the project manager is to make more like a timeline estimate. How much they think they're gonna be needing for, over, if it's a multi-year project or single year project. And the reason that we typically don't do contingencies is because it's a contingency. And if the contingency is too high, what it does, this allows us to fund as many projects as we could,
Right,
because
right.
like, our funding right now covers about a quarter to 1/3 of our capital needs. So if everyone put a contingency project, that percentage would be much lower. So, so we don't have the capacity to add more contingency to projects.
So what happens, as we're going through a project and, the, um, the vendor has a material issue, or do they come back to you for additional funds? And
That-
then you have to find those someplace else? Isn't that kind of like a contingency, or no?
That is correct. So that's why we have those forms A and B, which is an internal
Okay.
form to request more funding. The majority of
Okay.
projects are not very big. The typical cost of a project is maybe 250,000, maybe $1 million. We don't have multi-million dollar projects like Sandak. So we typically have, at the same token, when we have projects that maybe have overruns, we actually also have other projects that for some reason get canceled, or they have project savings. So we unallocate funds. So as those projects are getting closed out and the savings are realized, we unallocate them and we make them, it's almost like a reserve. So we manage the reserve, we know how much we have. So far since I've been here, in this role, the district for 7 years, we have not been in a situation where we could not fund a project, because you can get very creative, right? In managing savings. You know that some projects are funded 100%, but they have project delays. You know which ones those are. So that maybe you take away 6 months of funding and then you program in the next cycle.
So when you say we don't have projects up into the millions, so when there's bridges done or a big project, is that all Sandag
Well,
coordinating that?
We have
Or-
a handful of projects that are very big. Bridge replacement is a big one.
Right,
So is the signal replacement
Yeah.
projects, but right now we typically don't advance those for constructions unless we know that it's going to be programmed for a CIP, or we have some discretionary grants that are going to fund for those.
okay.
So, and then I know that Sandak, when they, because we work very closely with Sandak does build some contingency on those very, very big projects. But for the most part, projects are not very big, that sometimes just purchase of equipment or renovations that don't have a lot of overruns.
So we're not the controlling entity when there's a $200 million project going on? Is that what you're saying?
Well, within the regional framework, Sandak implements what
They're-
are called capacity
they're
housing
implementing.
and capacity
Okay.
projects, and we do state of good repair projects.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, Committee Member Jenkins, about your question, project delays, that is due to the supply chain issues resulting from the pandemic that every agency is facing. So it's a common issue.
I don't have any questions so much, Chair, as comments. And because the question I did have was asked by my colleague, I had the same contingency question, but I do understand in also, from my jurisdiction, as well as being a Sandag board member and hearing it, it's the same story. We're all facing these cost overruns that pretty much relate back to the pandemic and at the beginning and then at the tail end to inflation. So I'm not surprised. But thank you for highlighting what we can do to improve the process going forward so that we make sure it doesn't become an issue.
And then I just have one question for you all. I know you mentioned for one of the audit recommendations, I think it was the first one, it was around establishing a project management office. So I was just curious, and please correct me if I end up asking a question that doesn't end up making sense, but would we need extra staffing for something like that? Or would it just be amongst those that are the project managers, we'd find someone who would help manage that? I'm just curious how that would work operationally.
Okay, yeah, if I may, right now, we have a designated deputy chief, and he is initiating the work effort to institute a project management office. This is a collaborative effort, so we're working on this internally. And when we see that there is a need to allocate more resources, when we reach that point, we will do that. So that is right now, we are in its infancy, but we do have a plan.
I would just add to that. That's correct. Scott Loschke, he's leading up a team they're looking at project management district wide. And I think, one of the things that they have identified is there probably is a lack of resources, in terms of staffing. It is in its infancy. They're working on the charter right now, just so we can do this in a very organized fashion, make sure that we're looking at all of the aspects of project management. And if there is additional staffing that they think is needed in order for us to manage these projects better and in accordance with our funding agency's expectations, I think that would come to the board as part of the budget.
Great. Yeah, I know. And that was my next question. What would it cost? And it sounds like we haven't gotten there just yet. We're looking at what our options might look like, and then it'll come before us in the future. So great. Okay, well, that was my only question. Before I close it out, any other questions or comments from
Madam
any
Chair?
others? Oh, and yes, of course.
Yes, I would like to just chime in for a minute. And Suzanne does a great job in this whole internal audit and review. And you can see from her presentation that she's well organized and presents the information well. I just wanted to comment on the project management office. I've worked very closely with the team that has been putting that together. And first of all, the district does a good job in managing its projects. We have 11 development projects. We have lots of state of good repair projects, and we have good people. But I think, and the committee is really taking the lead on this, is that I think that there are some opportunities for economies of scale, of getting people to work together, sharing resources and approaches, and so on and so forth. And so I'm particularly excited about this. Scott Loschke works under Tracy Foster. And then Lori's taken the lead, and her attorney on this, Jacqueline. We have some tough names around here. Jacqueline Middlestadt is also working very closely and taking a lead on this. And I think that the board members can be very pleased. This is going to greatly improve our sharpness in our project management. In the long term, we'll have better projects and delivered in a more efficient financial manner. So I've studied this very carefully and worked with the committee, and I'm totally in support. And so just want to let you know that it's a great approach, and it's exactly what we should be doing. So.
Of course, yeah.
One last question. So what I'm hearing is that if I'm hearing you correctly, right now things are a little siloed project wise.
Yes, ma'am. I think that's true, because everyone is so busy that, they really focus hard on what they have to do, and they do a good job. I just think that with this project management office approach, it's all going to be coordinated, through one function. And I think that there are lots of economies that we'll see, and I think we'll have better projects and at lower costs. So.
I always think it's good to streamline and create
Yes.
processes that are consistent through an organization. So I think
Yes.
this is a good step. Thanks
Thank
for the
you.
recommendation.
Thank you. And I have a motion to adopt the proposed calendar year 2024 internal audit plan as was presented by staff.
So moved. Edson.
Second, Jenkins?
Great. Motion made by committee member Edson, seconded by Vice Chair Jenkins. Can we please call the vote?
Yes. Motion by committee member Edson, seconded by committee member Jenkins. The motion passes.
Oh, we have to vote still.
Sorry, I will call the vote. Board Chair Bob Patel,
Yes, aye.
committee member Jenkins.
Yes.
Committee member Garcia. Committee member Edson.
Yes.
Thank you, committee.
Great, thank you. And the next scheduled meeting is the regular board meeting, February 15th, 2024 at 2 p.m. The meeting is adjourned at 1:33.
Thank you.